Think for a moment about all the things you do to take care of yourself. The food you choose, the way you move, the attention you pay to rest and recovery. Now consider this. Despite all of that good intention, there may be an entire dimension of your health that you have never been shown. A layer beneath the surface that quietly influences how you feel each day. How much energy you carry into the afternoon. How clearly you think. How well you move. It is not a secret in the sense of something hidden. It is simply overlooked. The focus of health conversations tends to drift toward the dramatic, the urgent, the visible. But the body does not work that way. It works slowly, cumulatively, responding to conditions that build over decades. And the most important conditions may not be the ones you have been told to watch. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The long view. Understanding the architecture of healthy aging. There is a question that eventually arrives in every life. Sometimes quietly, sometimes with urgency. It comes not from doctors or from articles, but from within. The question is simply this: how do I want to spend the years ahead? And beneath that lies a deeper curiosity. What actually determines whether those years are lived with vitality, with clarity, with the kind of energy that makes daily life a pleasure rather than a series of limitations? These are not new questions. Humans have been asking them for thousands of years. What has changed is our ability to observe, across large populations and long stretches of time, which patterns of living consistently produce better outcomes. We now have the advantage of perspective. We can look at communities where people live not just long lives, but long, healthy lives, and we can ask what they have in common. We can examine the biological processes that seem to accelerate or slow the visible effects of time, and we can begin to assemble, piece by piece, a coherent picture of what healthy aging actually requires. This is not about quick interventions or dramatic transformations. It is about understanding the underlying architecture of human health and then making small, consistent adjustments that align with how the body was designed to function. The information that follows is drawn from decades of observation, from population studies, from traditional practices that have survived across generations, and from modern research into the cellular processes that influence how we feel as the years accumulate. What emerges is not a checklist or a prescription. It is a way of thinking about the body, about time, and about the relationship between the two. It is an invitation to consider that many of the limitations we associate with aging are not inevitable. They are simply patterns that have become familiar. Part 1. The biology of time. To understand how to support the body through the decades. It helps first to understand what is actually happening at a level beneath conscious awareness. The human body is not a machine that simply wears out with use. It is more like a garden, constantly renewing itself, constantly repairing, constantly responding to the conditions it is given. Every day, the body replaces billions of cells. It rebuilds tissues, clears away metabolic waste, and adjusts its internal chemistry to maintain balance. This process of renewal is happening right now as you read these words. The question is not whether the body can repair itself. It does this constantly. The question is whether the conditions are favorable for that repair to happen efficiently. When we talk about the effects of time, we are really talking about the gap between the damage the body accumulates and its ability to fix that damage. In youth, the repair systems are robust. They operate quickly and thoroughly. With each passing decade, those systems require more support. They become more sensitive to the quality of the inputs they receive. There are several key processes that researchers have identified as central to this story. Understanding them in simple terms provides a foundation for everything that follows. The first is inflammation. This word appears everywhere in health discussions, often without much explanation. In its proper role, Inflammation is a protective response. When a pathogen enters the body or a tissue is injured, the immune system sends out signals that increase blood flow, recruit healing cells, and contain the threat. This is acute inflammation, and it resolves once the problem is handled. The concern for aging bodies is different. It is chronic, low-grade inflammation that never fully switches off. This state has been given a name by researchers: inflammaging. It is not the redness and swelling of an infected wound. It is a slow, smoldering background hum of immune activity that gradually damages tissues over years and decades. This persistent inflammation is now understood to be a common thread connecting many of the changes that accompany later life. The second process is oxidative stress. To produce energy, cells burn fuel using oxygen. This is a remarkably efficient system, but it has a byproduct. The chemical reactions create unstable molecules known as free radicals. These molecules are missing an electron, and in their search to replace it, they can bump into other cellular structures and cause damage. The body has its own antioxidant systems designed to neutralize these free radicals before they cause trouble. But when the production of free radicals outpaces the body's ability to neutralize them, oxidative stress accumulates. This damage can affect cell membranes, proteins, and even DNA. Over time, it contributes to the stiffness and reduced function that characterize aging tissues. The third process involves the energy factories inside each cell. The mitochondria. These tiny structures convert the food we eat into the energy the body uses for everything from muscle contraction to brain activity. They are extraordinarily numerous. Each cell contains hundreds or thousands of them, but they are also vulnerable. Mitochondria have their own DNA, which is more exposed to damage than the DNA in the cell nucleus. As oxidative stress accumulates, mitochondria become less efficient. They produce less energy and more waste. This creates a downward spiral, because cells with poorly functioning mitochondria are less able to repair themselves, which leads to further damage. The fourth process relates to the maintenance of proteins. Cells are constantly building new proteins and breaking down old ones. This is not a random process. It is carefully regulated by quality control systems that identify damaged or misfolded proteins and recycle them into their component parts. With age, these systems become less discriminating. Misfolded proteins can accumulate, forming clumps that interfere with cellular function. This is particularly relevant in tissues that do not divide frequently, such as neurons and heart muscle cells, where damaged proteins can persist for decades. The fifth process involves the length of our telomeres. These are protective caps on the ends of chromosomes, like the plastic tips on shoelaces that prevent them from fraying. Each time a cell divides, these caps shorten slightly. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide and enters a state called senescence, where it remains metabolically active but stops replicating. Senescent cells are not harmless. They secrete inflammatory signals that can damage surrounding tissues. The rate at which telomeres shorten is influenced by many factors, including oxidative stress and inflammation. What is important to understand about all of these processes is that they are not independent. They interact with each other in complex ways. Inflammation generates oxidative stress. Oxidative stress damages mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria produce more free radicals and less energy. Poor energy production impairs the cell's ability to clear damaged proteins. And throughout all of this, telomeres continue to shorten in response to the cumulative burden. This may sound like a grim picture, but there is another way to look at it. Every one of these processes is modifiable. They are influenced by the choices we make hundreds of times each day. The foods we eat, the movement we engage in, the quality of our sleep, our social connections, our exposure to environmental factors, even our psychological state. All of these feed back into the fundamental biology of aging. The body is not passively deteriorating. It is actively responding to its environment. And by changing that environment, we change the response. Part 2. The intelligence of traditional patterns. Before the advent of modern medicine, before clinical trials and laboratory research, humans still managed to live long and vital lives. They did so by following patterns that had been refined over countless generations, not through scientific understanding, but through observation and tradition. These patterns were encoded in cultural practices, in dietary habits, in the rhythms of daily life. They were not thought of as health interventions. They were simply how things were done. There is a tendency in modern thinking to dismiss traditional practices as superstition or folklore. But when researchers began studying populations with unusually high concentrations of healthy older adults, they found something striking. The practices of these communities aligned remarkably well with what science was beginning to understand about the biology of aging. The traditions had preserved, through cultural memory, a set of behaviors that supported the body's natural repair systems. Consider the way traditional diets were structured. They were not built around isolated nutrients or superfoods. They were built around whole foods, prepared simply, eaten in season. Vegetables and fruits provided the colorful pigments that we now know as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. Fermented foods supplied beneficial bacteria that supported digestion and immune regulation. Bone broths and slow-cooked meals extracted minerals and gelatinous compounds that supported joint health and gut integrity. Herbs and spices were used not just for flavor, but as digestive aids and preservatives, many of which we now know contain potent bioactive compounds. Consider the patterns of movement. Traditional life did not involve dedicated exercise sessions. It involved constant low-level physical activity. Walking to fetch water, tending gardens, preparing food by hand, walking to visit neighbors. This movement was not intense, but it was frequent. It maintained joint mobility, supported cardiovascular function, and provided the mechanical signals that tell the body to maintain muscle and bone mass. Consider the relationship with light and darkness. Before artificial lighting, humans rose with the sun and wound down after sunset. This pattern synchronized the internal clocks that govern everything from hormone release to cellular repair. The sleep that resulted was deeper and more restorative, not because people tried harder to sleep well, but because their environment supported the natural rhythm. Consider the social structure. Traditional communities were multi-generational. Older adults were not isolated. They remained embedded in family and community life, with roles and responsibilities that provided meaning and purpose. This social engagement is now understood to be as important to health as any physical factor. Loneliness and social isolation are powerful predictors of decline, operating through stress pathways and inflammatory mechanisms that directly affect cellular health. The point is not to romanticize the past or suggest that we should abandon modern life. The point is to recognize that many of the challenges we face with aging are relatively new in human experience. They arise from a mismatch between our ancient biology and our modern environment. The body evolved under conditions of regular movement, whole foods, natural light cycles, and strong social bonds. When we depart too far from those conditions, the repair systems struggle to keep up. This understanding provides a useful framework. It suggests that the most reliable strategies for supporting healthy aging are not necessarily the newest or most sophisticated. They are the ones that bring our daily patterns back into alignment with the conditions the body expects. This is not about restriction or deprivation. It is about reestablishing a relationship with the body that is based on cooperation rather than demand. Part 3. The terrain of digestion and filtration. Among the most important relationships in the body is the one between what we consume and how the body processes it. Every bite of food, every sip of liquid, must be handled by a complex system designed to extract what is useful and eliminate what is not. Two organs play particularly central roles in this process, though they often receive less attention than the heart or the brain. The first is the digestive tract itself. It is easy to think of digestion as simply a matter of breaking down food and absorbing nutrients. But the digestive system is far more sophisticated. It is a selective barrier. It must allow the products of digestion to pass into the bloodstream while keeping out undigested food particles, bacteria, and toxins. This barrier function depends on the integrity of the cells lining the intestine and the tight junctions between them. When these junctions become loose, a condition sometimes described as increased intestinal permeability, larger particles can enter the bloodstream. The immune system, recognizing these particles as foreign, mounts a response. This adds to the background inflammation that drives so many age-related changes. The quality of what we drink matters here as well. Water is not just water. The composition of fluids, their mineral content, their temperature, even the timing of consumption, all influence how they are handled. Traditional practices often included specific beverages consumed at specific times, not for their caloric content, but for their effects on the body's internal environment. Consider the simple practice of starting the day with warm water and lemon. This is not a detox in the dramatic sense that word is sometimes used. The body does not need help detoxifying in that way. The liver and kidneys are perfectly capable of handling metabolic waste. But warm lemon water does have effects that support these organs in their work. The warmth encourages peristalsis, the gentle muscular contractions that move waste through the digestive tract. The lemon provides citric acid, which in the body becomes citrate. Citrate has the ability to bind to calcium in the urine, reducing the likelihood that calcium will form crystals that can accumulate in the delicate structures of the kidney. For anyone concerned about the health of their urinary system, this is a meaningful support. The addition of a small amount of unrefined salt to this morning routine introduces trace minerals that have been largely refined out of the modern diet. Magnesium, in particular, is involved in hundreds of enzymatic reactions, including those that govern muscle relaxation, nerve transmission, and the maintenance of stable heart rhythm. Potassium supports fluid balance and helps buffer the mild acidity that can accumulate when kidney function is under stress. These are not dramatic interventions. They are small adjustments that create more favorable conditions for the body's ongoing work. Another traditional beverage that appears across multiple cultures is barley water. This simple preparation, made by simmering whole barley grains in water and straining the liquid, has been used for centuries to support urinary health. Modern investigation suggests why. Barley contains soluble fibers called beta-glucans. These fibers are not digested in the small intestine. They travel to the large intestine, where they feed beneficial bacteria and also trap certain waste products, preventing them from being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. This reduces the workload on the kidneys, which would otherwise have to filter those waste products from the blood. In populations where barley water is a regular part of the diet, markers of kidney function tend to be better maintained across the lifespan. The same principle applies to herbal infusions made from plants like nettle and dandelion. These are not medicines in the pharmaceutical sense. They are gentle supporters of the body's own processes. Nettle leaf has a long history of use for joint health and urinary function. Research has identified compounds in nettle that can reduce the inflammatory signals that damage the filtering units of the kidney. It also provides a mild diuretic effect, increasing the flow of urine without depleting potassium, which can be a concern with some pharmaceutical diuretics. This gentle increase in urine flow helps maintain a steady clearance of metabolic waste, reducing the concentration of potentially irritating substances in the urinary tract. Dandelion root works through similar mechanisms, though with a particular affinity for the liver. The liver and kidneys work as a team. The liver processes and packages waste products for elimination, and the kidneys filter them from the blood. Supporting one supports the other. Dandelion contains compounds that increase the production and flow of bile, which carries liver-processed waste into the intestine for elimination. This reduces the burden on the kidneys and creates a more balanced internal environment. What all of these traditional beverages share is a common approach. They do not force the body to do something against its will. They provide conditions that allow the body to do its work more effectively. They are gentle, they are sustainable, and they are backed by generations of observation. Part 4. The protective power of plant compounds. If there is a single theme that emerges from research into healthy aging, it is the importance of the colorful compounds found in plants. These are not vitamins in the traditional sense, though many plants contain vitamins as well. They are secondary metabolites, compounds that plants produce to protect themselves from threats in their environment. Some protect against ultraviolet radiation. Some repel insects. Some fight fungal infections. When humans consume these compounds, they receive some of the same protective benefits. The most studied of these compounds are the polyphenol, a large family that includes thousands of individual substances. Among them are the flavonoids, which give many fruits and flowers their deep colors. Anthocyanins, for example, are responsible for the blues and purples of blueberries, blackberries, and purple grapes. In the body, these compounds act as antioxidants, neutralizing the free radicals that would otherwise damage cellular structures. But their effects go beyond simple antioxidant activity. They also influence gene expression, turning on the body's own internal antioxidant and repair systems. They reduce inflammation by calming the immune signaling pathways that become overactive with age. They support the health of blood vessels by improving the function of the endothelial cells that line them. Consider the example of hibiscus, whose deep red flowers have been used for centuries in teas and beverages across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. The color comes from anthocyanins, and research has confirmed that these compounds have a relaxing effect on blood vessels. This is not a dramatic effect, but a gentle, sustained one. Over time, this relaxation of vessel walls can support healthy blood pressure levels, reducing the stress on the kidneys and the cardiovascular system. The same compounds protect the delicate capillaries of the kidney from oxidative damage, helping to preserve the integrity of the filtration system. Blueberries have been particularly well studied in this context. Population studies have observed that people who eat blueberries regularly tend to have better cognitive function and lower rates of cardiovascular issues as they age. When researchers look at kidney health specifically, they find that the anthocyanins in blueberries accumulate in kidney tissue, where they provide direct protection to the tubules and glomeruli. This is not about reversing damage that has already occurred. It is about preventing the accumulation of damage over time, which is the essence of healthy aging. Parsley, often used as a garnish and discarded, contains its own set of protective compounds. The most notable is apigenin, a flavonoid that has been shown in laboratory studies to reduce inflammation in kidney tissue and support the clearance of waste products. Parsley also acts as a gentle diuretic, increasing urine flow and helping to flush the urinary tract. Combined with the anthocyanins from blueberries, these compounds create a broader spectrum of support than either provides alone. What is important to understand about these plant compounds is that they work best in combination. The idea of isolating a single compound and concentrating it into a supplement has not proven as effective as simply consuming the whole plant. The compounds appear to work synergistically, supporting each other's absorption and activity. A blueberry contains dozens of different anthocyanins, along with fiber, vitamins, and other flavonoids. Parsley contains apigenin along with vitamin C, folate, and volatile oils. The combination, consumed as a simple infusion in water, provides a spectrum of support that no single isolated compound can match. This points to a broader principle. The most reliable strategies for healthy aging are not about finding a single magic substance. They are about diversity, about consuming a wide range of plant compounds from a variety of sources, and about doing so consistently over time. The effects are cumulative. A single cup of blueberry and parsley infusion will not change your health trajectory. But a lifetime of such infusions, or even just a few years of consistent practice, creates conditions in which the body's repair systems can operate more effectively. Part 5. The question of accumulation. There is another dimension to the relationship between what we consume and how the body ages. It has to do with substances that the body cannot easily process or eliminate. Over a lifetime, the human body is exposed to a vast array of environmental compounds. Some come from food and water. Some come from the air. Some come from materials we handle or cook with. The body has systems for dealing with these exposures. But those systems can become overwhelmed when the load is too high or when the substances are particularly persistent. Among the most concerning of these are the heavy metals. Lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic can all accumulate in body tissues over time. The kidneys are particularly vulnerable because they concentrate substances from the blood for elimination. In the process, they can be exposed to higher concentrations of these metals than other organs. Cadmium, for example, has a half-life in the human body of decades. Once it accumulates in kidney tissue, it can remain there for the rest of a person's life, gradually interfering with cellular function. This is not a new problem. Industrial activity has increased environmental metal levels, but humans have always been exposed to metals from natural sources. What is new is our understanding of how certain foods can help the body manage this load. Some plants and algae have the ability to bind to heavy metals in the digestive tract, preventing their absorption into the bloodstream. This is not a detox in the sense of pulling metals out of tissues where they have already accumulated. It is an interception strategy, preventing new absorption and allowing the body to slowly reduce its burden over time as metals are naturally excreted. Chlorella, a freshwater algae, has been studied for this property. Its cell wall has a unique structure that can bind to metals like cadmium and lead. When consumed with water on an empty stomach, chlorella passes through the digestive tract, and any metals present in the digestive juices or recently consumed food can bind to it and be carried out of the body. Research has shown that consistent use of chlorella is associated with lower levels of certain metals in the body and with better markers of kidney function in populations with higher environmental exposures. The same principle applies to the soluble fibers found in foods like barley and oats. These fibers bind to waste products in the intestine, including some that have been processed by the liver and excreted in bile. By binding to these substances, the fibers prevent them from being reabsorbed into the bloodstream, effectively reducing the body's total load of metabolic waste. This is one reason why diets higher in soluble fiber are consistently associated with better health outcomes across multiple organ systems. This perspective shifts the focus from what we add to the body to what we might help the body remove. It is not about deprivation or purging. It is about supporting the body's natural elimination pathways so that they can keep pace with the inevitable exposures of daily life. A body that can efficiently process and eliminate waste is a body that maintains its function longer. Part 6. The rhythm of restoration. There is a pattern to human biology that is often overlooked in discussions of health. It is the pattern of oscillation, of activity and rest, of stress and recovery. The body is not designed to operate at a steady state. It is designed to cycle through phases, each with its own purpose. The most obvious of these cycles is the daily rhythm governed by light and darkness. But there are others operating on different timescales. The sleep-wake cycle is perhaps the most important for long-term health. During sleep, the body performs functions that are difficult or impossible during wakefulness. The brain clears out metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. The immune system reviews its records and adjusts its responses. Tissues are repaired, and energy stores are replenished. Growth hormone, which supports tissue maintenance, is released primarily during deep sleep. For older adults, sleep often becomes lighter and more fragmented, which can reduce the time spent in these restorative phases. Supporting healthy sleep is not about forcing it. It is about creating conditions that allow the natural rhythm to express itself. Exposure to bright light during the day, particularly in the morning, helps set the internal clock. Dimming lights in the evening and avoiding blue light from screens signals to the brain that darkness is approaching. A cool room temperature supports the natural drop in core body temperature that initiates sleep. Regular movement during the day increases the body's drive for restorative rest at night. These are not interventions in the medical sense. They are adjustments to the environment that bring it closer to the conditions under which human sleep evolved. There are other rhythms as well. The digestive system benefits from periods of rest between meals. Constant grazing, eating small amounts throughout the day, keeps the digestive tract continuously active. It never gets the break that allows for cleanup and repair. This is one reason why traditional cultures often had defined meal times and did not eat between them. The digestive system had a chance to complete its work and then rest before the next intake. The same principle applies to physical activity. The body adapts to stress during periods of recovery, not during the activity itself. Exercise creates micro-damage in muscles and depletes energy stores. It is during the rest that follows that the body rebuilds, becoming slightly stronger than before. Without adequate recovery, the adaptations cannot occur, and the stress becomes simply damaging rather than strengthening. This understanding of rhythm and recovery has implications for how we think about the beverages discussed earlier. They are not meant to be consumed constantly throughout the day. They have their own timing. The morning lemon water supports the transition from the overnight fast to the active day. The chlorella on an empty stomach takes advantage of the digestive tract's relative quiet to maximize binding and absorption. The barley water in the afternoon supports the body's natural peak in digestive and metabolic activity. The evening hibiscus prepares the body for the overnight rest by supporting vascular relaxation. Each has its place in the daily cycle, and together they create a pattern that works with the body rather than against it. This is the opposite of the modern tendency to seek constant stimulation and constant intake. It is a return to rhythm, to the ancient understanding that timing matters as much as substance. Part 7. The social body. It is a common habit to think of health as an individual matter, a private concern between a person and their body. But this view misses something essential. Humans are social animals. Our biology is deeply intertwined with our relationships. Isolation and loneliness are not just emotional states. They are physiological stressors that activate the same pathways as physical threats. When humans feel socially isolated, the brain interprets this as danger. In ancestral environments, being alone meant being vulnerable. The stress response activates, raising levels of cortisol and other stress hormones. Over time, chronic activation of this response leads to the same inflammaging process discussed earlier. It damages tissues, accelerates cellular aging, and contributes to the very conditions we try to avoid through diet and exercise. This is not speculation. Large population studies have consistently found that social connection is one of the strongest predictors of healthy aging. People with strong social ties live longer, maintain better cognitive function, and recover more quickly from illness. The effect size is comparable to or greater than that of many physical health interventions. The mechanisms are multiple. Social engagement provides cognitive stimulation, which helps maintain neural connections. It provides emotional support, which buffers the effects of stress. It provides accountability, making it more likely that people will maintain healthy habits. And it provides meaning, a sense of purpose that has its own biological effects. People who feel their lives have meaning have lower levels of inflammatory markers and better cardiovascular function than those who feel adrift. For older adults, maintaining social connection often requires more effort than it did in younger years. Retirement can remove the daily contact with colleagues. Children move away. Friendships require maintenance that becomes harder when mobility is limited. But the evidence suggests that this effort is as important as any other health practice. It is not optional. It is fundamental. The traditional beverages and practices discussed earlier were almost always social. They were shared. Meals were communal. Teas were poured for visitors. The preparation of food and drink was an activity that brought people together. This social dimension may be as important as the chemical composition of what was consumed. A cup of tea shared with a friend provides the benefits of the tea and the benefits of the connection. A cup consumed alone provides only one. This suggests a simple but profound principle. Whatever health practices we adopt, we are likely to sustain them better and benefit from them more if we do them with others. Walking with a companion, preparing meals together, sharing the afternoon infusion. These are not just pleasant additions to a health routine. They are integral to it. They address the social body, which is as real as the physical body. Part 8. The environment we create. There is a final layer to this architecture of healthy aging. It has to do with the physical environment we inhabit, the spaces where we live, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the materials we touch. All of these influence the body's internal environment in ways that are subtle but cumulative. Consider the quality of water. Tap water in most developed countries is treated to be safe from pathogens, but it can contain traces of industrial chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and in some cases, metals from aging pipes. Filtering water for drinking and cooking is a simple way to reduce this background load. It is not about fear or paranoia. It is about reducing the number of substances the body has to process, leaving more capacity for the metabolic waste it produces on its own. Consider the materials used in cookware. Nonstick coatings can degrade at high temperatures, releasing compounds that are not part of the human evolutionary experience. Stainless steel, cast iron, glass, and ceramic are more neutral. They do not add anything to food. They simply contain it while it cooks. Consider the air inside the home. Modern buildings are sealed for energy efficiency, which can trap indoor pollutants. Cleaning products, air fresheners, candles, and even new furniture can release volatile compounds that the liver and kidneys must process. Ventilation, air purifying plants, and choosing simpler products with fewer synthetic fragrances can reduce this load. Consider the relationship with nature. Time spent outdoors, in green spaces, has measurable effects on health. Blood pressure drops, stress hormones decrease, immune function improves. The reasons are not fully understood, but the effect is reliable. Forest bathing, as the Japanese call it, is not mysticism. It is a physiological response to an environment that matches the one in which humans evolved. These environmental factors are easy to dismiss as minor. Each one, by itself, probably is. but their effects are cumulative. A body that is constantly processing a low-level stream of environmental toxins, breathing indoor air that is less than ideal, drinking water with trace contaminants, and rarely connecting with nature is a body that is constantly working. Over decades, that constant work adds up. It contributes to the gap between damage and repair that defines the experience of aging. The alternative is not perfection. It is not possible to create a completely pristine environment, but it is possible to make choices that reduce the load. A water filter, better ventilation, simpler products, regular time outside. These are investments in reducing the background stress on the body's systems. They free up capacity for the essential work of maintenance and repair. Part 9. Integration and practice. At this point, it may seem that healthy aging requires an overwhelming number of changes. But this is a misunderstanding of how meaningful change actually occurs. The practices described here are not a checklist to be mastered all at once. They are a set of principles that can be applied gradually, one small adjustment at a time. The first principle is alignment with natural rhythms. This means eating and drinking in ways that respect the body's cycles. It means sleeping in darkness and being active in light. It means moving frequently but not constantly, resting deeply but not excessively. The beverages discussed throughout this exploration are simply tools for supporting this alignment. The morning lemon water supports the transition from rest to activity. The afternoon barley water supports the peak of digestive function. The evening hibiscus supports the transition back to rest. The second principle is diversity of plant compounds. This means consuming a wide range of colorful fruits, vegetables, herbs, and traditional preparations. It does not require exotic superfoods or expensive supplements. It requires variety. Blueberries from the freezer section, parsley from the garden or market, hibiscus tea from the bulk bin. These are accessible to anyone. The goal is not to find the single most powerful substance. It is to provide the body with a broad spectrum of the protective compounds it evolved to expect. The third principle is support for elimination. This means helping the body process and remove the waste it generates and the substances it absorbs. Soluble fibers from whole grains, gentle diuretics from herbs, binders like chlorella. These all support the organs of elimination in their work. Adequate hydration is essential here. Without enough water, the kidneys cannot maintain the flow needed to clear waste efficiently. The beverages described are a way of combining hydration with targeted support. The fourth principle is social connection. This means maintaining relationships, participating in community, sharing meals and conversations. It means recognizing that isolation is a physiological stressor and treating social engagement as a health practice, not just a pleasure. The beverages we consume can be part of this. They can be shared. They can be offered to guests. They can become rituals that bring people together. The fifth principle is environmental awareness. This means paying attention to the quality of air, water, and materials in our daily lives. It means making choices that reduce the background load of substances the body must process. It means spending time in nature, not as a luxury, but as a regular practice. None of these principles requires perfection. A person who drinks barley water most days but misses some is still benefiting. A person who filters their tap water but occasionally drinks from a plastic bottle is still reducing their overall load. A person who walks with a friend twice a week is still getting the benefits of movement and connection. The goal is not to achieve an ideal state. The goal is to shift the trajectory, to make the slope of decline a little gentler, to extend the period of vitality. Part 10. The long view. There is a tendency in modern culture to think in terms of interventions and results. Do this. Get that. Take this supplement. Fix that problem. This mindset is understandable. It comes from the same place as modern medicine, which excels at acute interventions. But aging is not acute. It is chronic. It is the cumulative effect of millions of small moments, each one leaving a trace. The approach outlined here is different. It is not about fixing anything. It is about creating conditions. It is about understanding that the body is not a machine to be repaired, but a garden to be tended. The gardener does not force the plants to grow. The gardener prepares the soil, provides water and light, removes what would compete or harm, and then waits. The growth happens on its own, in its own time, according to its own nature. This is a difficult perspective to maintain in a culture that values speed and results. But it is also a liberating one. It means that the small choices matter. The cup of tea in the afternoon, the walk after dinner, the shared meal with a friend, the attention to good water. These are not trivial. They are the tending. They are the preparation of the soil. The research from population studies supports this view. The places where people live longest and healthiest are not places with advanced medical systems or cutting-edge supplements. They are places where traditional patterns have been preserved. They are places where people move naturally, eat whole foods, maintain strong social bonds, and live in rhythm with their environment. They are places where the long view has never been lost. This is available to anyone, anywhere. It does not require moving to a remote village or abandoning modern life. It requires seeing the connections, understanding the principles, and making small adjustments that accumulate over time. It requires patience and consistency, which are not glamorous but are effective. The years ahead are not fixed. They are being shaped by the choices of today and tomorrow and the day after. Each choice is an opportunity to create conditions that support the body's remarkable capacity for maintenance and repair. The body wants to keep going. It wants to maintain its function. It simply needs the right conditions. This is the long view. It is not about avoiding death, which is not possible. It is about living fully until the end, about maintaining the capacity for engagement and enjoyment and contribution for as long as possible. It is about understanding that the way we live shapes not just how long we live, but how we live throughout those years. The practices described here are not prescriptions. They are invitations. They are opportunities to experiment, to observe, to find what works in the context of a particular life. Some will resonate. Some will not. The important thing is to begin, to make one small change, to observe its effects, and then to make another. This is how trajectories shift. This is how the long view becomes reality. In the end, the question is not whether we will age. We all will. The question is whether we will age in a way that allows us to remain ourselves, to continue the activities and relationships that give life meaning, to face the later years with strength and clarity rather than limitation and decline. The answer to that question is being written every day, in the small choices, in the consistent practices, in the attention we pay to the body that has carried us this far and will carry us forward into whatever comes next. The only question that remains is the one you have been carrying since the beginning. What kind of years are you building? Not how many, but what quality? What texture? What felt experience of being alive? The answer is being written in the small choices, in the daily rhythms, in the attention you pay to the body that has carried you this far. The research is clear. The patterns that support healthy aging are not complicated. They are ancient. They are accessible. And they are waiting to be reclaimed. If this reflection has stirred something in you, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to continue this exploration, we invite you to explore the other volumes in this library and to subscribe so that no new wisdom passes you by. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.